we on?
Yeah.
Good morning. Hi, we're at Dayempur Farm. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Terry Hickey, the General Manager of Dayempur Herbals, and with me today is Susan Kamil, who is a licensed acupuncturist and a clinical herbalist. And we're very excited to share with you today the herb garden, the plants that we're growing in the herb garden, and the medicinal uses for them, both from a Chinese perspective and from a Western medicine perspective. But before we get started, we want to welcome you all and thank you for joining us this morning. For those of you who are tuning in, if you have questions today, we'd love to have you ask questions as we're going along. And anyone that asks a question, your name will be put in a hat, and we're going to do a drawing for a gift certificate and a 20% off online purchase for Dayempur Herbals. The gift certificate is for an initial consult with Susan Kamil. It's a $150 value, is that right?
Yes.
That's a really nice offering. It's a 2-hour consult where you can learn about acupuncture and herbal remedies. And then the 20% discount is from Dayempur Herbals, which you can use online to buy products. So we're hoping you'll be inspired today and want to explore further. That's the whole purpose of this, is to have an interesting discussion about herbs, medicine, and also especially with all that's going on today in the social distancing, which we are practicing today, with the health issues that we're also concerned about. We want to help address some of those in our conversation today. So is there anything you'd like to add as an introduction, Susan?
I'm just very excited to be here. I want to thank you for inviting me. I'm going to speak as loud as I can because we are outside. So thankfully it's a beautiful day and we're so blessed to be out here in the herb garden. There's nothing like being actually in nature and seeing these herbs in their natural form before they get dried or made into tinctures. And I hope that it comes through the screen how vibrant health is and how vibrant herbs are, and how we can use them for such a multitude of things that we might not even realize. So hopefully there'll be some aha moments today for people like, whoa, I have that. She just mentioned that. Let me check that out. So we're here as a resource.
And it's really nice to be standing in the garden and to be looking at the plants. It's one thing to talk about plant-based medicine and take a tincture or use an infused oil or whatever, but to actually see the plant and make the connection with nature and what the plant is intended to help us heal. Because one of the beauties of plant-based medicine is it's the same biology as our bodies. And that's one of the reasons that it is so influential in helping our bodies self-heal. Would you say?
Absolutely, yeah. The idea is that what grows near you or is around you is what will heal you. That's a very old Native American adage. It's also an old adage within Chinese medicine as well, that what is around you is what will heal you. And some cultures even use just one herb for everything. So there's so many uses to herbs just within one herb or a few herbs. So hopefully this will help build up your herbal toolkit and have your little medicine cabinet reassessed, and you can now add in some natural products.
Yeah. And Susan, one of the things that we have been talking about as we were preparing for this event is, because of the coronavirus that's going on, there are people that have lots of questions about how do I build up my system and clear my system to prepare my body to stay healthy. And then, of course, then there's the, well, if I get coronavirus, what's going to happen? So maybe from a Chinese medicine perspective, you could offer us some context for that issue. And I know today we're hoping, this is a 2-part series, and today we're hoping to focus on the things that help support and clear our system. And then next week, we're going to do the same thing at the same time, same place. We're going to talk about how to build and support your system.
Yes.
So maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, you just touched on it beautifully. Basically, there's 2 basic ideas with working with immunity or keeping viruses at bay, trying not to get sick, or what you do once you are sick. So first and foremost, you have to clear. You have to clear the system. We sometimes hear this thrown around in our vernacular as detoxing. That's another way of thinking of it. So if something has come in from the outside, whether it be a virus, a bug, a cold, or a flu, outside that is not ours, and we want to push it out, that's the first step. We have to push that thing out. And then that's mainly, we're going to be covering those types of herbs today. And then next week, like Terry mentioned, we will be talking about the next part of the phase of helping someone to keep viruses at bay, which is building the system and strengthening the system so that we don't get sick, so it doesn't reoccur, and we actually feel stronger through the process, because ultimately getting sick or what have you is really about a healing journey and a process of self-discovery and how we can start to learn more about our bodies, our minds, our spirits.
Right. That's really what has crossed my mind throughout this whole pandemic, is really the conversation should be centered around what does it mean to be healthy, and how can we stay healthy, and what is real health. And I'm really hoping that because of the acute attention on this virus, that people will really start to understand and open up to what it means to be healthy and what does their body need in order to become a more stable environment for good health.
Yeah, we have definitely noticed that in our office at the Dayempur Health Center, where we have our acupuncture practice and make custom-made formulas here in Illinois, and we definitely notice an uptick in people being very conscious about their health, wanting to know what they can do. What used to seem like maybe silly, or they weren't so drawn to it, or felt like out there, they're now really considering it. And herbs and acupuncture are definitely in that category for some people, where they're just more open. So in a sense, sickness actually helps us to be more open sometimes. It's not that we want to try to get sick so that we have more openness, but sometimes it just brings us to that.
Well, that's one of the things I love when we think of illness. We oftentimes will call it a healing crisis. And just as you so beautifully said, it brings our attention to it so that we can put some attention on our health and well-being.
Yes.
And reach out for that. If you're just joining us, I'm Terry Hickey with Dayempur Herbals. We're standing in the Medicinal Herb Garden at Dayempur Farm in Anna, Illinois. And I'm interviewing Susan Kamil, who is a licensed acupuncturist and a clinical herbalist out of the Dayempur Health Center in Carbondale. Susan and I have been working together for, 8 or 9 years.
Many years.
And it's just really fun to be together in the garden after all this time. And I'm very excited to be talking about these beautiful plants that we are growing here. We grow over 40 medicinal plants in this herb garden. We tend to them, this is a key time of year for the herb garden. We usually have an herbal medicine workshop in June, which of course we couldn't do this year. So we're reaching out and trying to do some education in the garden so you can see it and learn more about this wonderful plant-based medicine. So Susan, maybe we could dive into some of the plants. We're gonna speak to a handful of the plants today, and then be sure to join us even next Saturday on the 18th at the same time, 10 a.m. We're going to do another Facebook Live and talk about more of the herbs.
Yes.
Because I know we're not going to get through everything today.
Yeah, herbs are very abundant. There's much abundance to talk about.
So we're standing in the Yarrow bed, and Yarrow is still flowering. It peaked a couple weeks ago, but we're still getting a lot of beautiful, beautiful white flowers. Why don't we come in closer and we can focus a little bit on Susan speaking to the Yarrow plant.
So as we said earlier, we're going to be focusing more on clearing herbs today. So if someone feels like they've gotten sick, it could be in the light of the whole coronavirus, but also a flu, a bug, a cold, a sore throat. We're going to I couldn't help but really want to highlight Yarrow. Yarrow is in the Chinese medicine categorization, it is a release exterior herb. And I love those words together, because essentially the Chinese were very simple in how they thought of things, in that you are pushing something that has come in to the exterior. It is no longer in you. So Yarrow is amazing for anything that comes on acutely, which is like a sudden onset. So like a cold, like a flu, like a sore throat, like a fever. It's excellent for fevers as well. So if you have a fever, you can take this to reduce your fever. Truthfully, this is one of my go-tos. I keep this in my purse just in case I start to feel a little something. And it's super easy with the Dayempur Herbals tincture. It's very small and compact. I don't have to cook anything. It's right there. And when you're not feeling so great, you don't want to be cooking so much. So it's very convenient. So this is since it does help to reduce a fever, this is why I love Chinese medicine, because they just generalize that. So basically it helps to cool the body. So if somebody is having excessive bleeding, this is a wonderful herb to take. It actually, when someone is having excessive bleeding, such as excessive menstrual bleeding or any kind of bleeding, even nosebleeds, this is a wonderful herb to take because it actually helps to cool the blood. So when we cool the blood, it's less likely to move. So we're going to be using terms like release exterior and blood, and these are all terms that are very much used in the Chinese medicine categorization. And hopefully this will produce some questions, so you can go ahead and bring your questions on, and we can talk more about them today or in a follow-up episode.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, as we said earlier, we invite your questions, and anybody who answers or sends in questions, you can. Anyone who sends in questions, we will enter your name in a drawing, and you have the opportunity to win a gift certificate from Susan Kamil for a 2-hour consult, introductory consult, valued at $150, which is very generous, thank you. And then a 20% discount coupon for Dayempur Herbal products online. You were speaking to the Yarrow, and I love the Chinese medicine language, right? Release exterior, cooling. You mentioned menstrual. For bleeding, and one of the things in Western medicine that we like to say is Yarrow is an adaptogen that will start or stop bleeding.
Yes.
So a lot of women do like to use Yarrow tincture as a remedy for menstrual cramping, or if they need to stimulate the bleeding, it will stimulate the bleeding, and if it needs to stop the bleeding, it'll stop the bleeding. It's amazing to me how a plant has that intelligence to work within the human body to do that.
Exactly.
So that's one of the things that caught my attention. The other thing that that you had mentioned is the cooling, and maybe this relates or doesn't relate, but we use Yarrow in our inflammation pain relief oil and our breast care oils.
Yes.
Because Yarrow can also help reduce swelling.
Which is a form of heat.
Oh, it's a form of heat. Okay.
So again, it's going to be a cooling aspect to it. So yeah, that's the connection.
Got it. That's wonderful, because it's really amazing in the inflammation pain relief oil.
Yes.
If you have sore joints, sore muscles, bug bites, any kind of swollen inflammation, headaches,
Yes.
putting it on your neck, that inflammation and pain relief oil will help reduce the swelling or reduce the heat in the body, which is really cool.
I've had clients use it for even on their, I don't know much about veterinary medicine on this, but they've used it for their dogs when they've had that like major itching, and they've like skin issues, as well as fibroids, even small cysts coming up in their body. It actually helps to like get rid of it and reduce that swelling. Those are all inflammation symptoms.
Right, and
So,
heat symptoms. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'm just going to throw in, because we actually have like 6 different products that uses Yarrow.
Yes.
We make the tincture, as you referred to. I mentioned the inflammation pain relief oils. We make a breast care oil line called Groovy Booby and Breast Friend for the nursing mom and for women to do massage, which is probably the single best preventative thing women can do to keep breast health. And then we also use it in our Yarrow bug repellent.
Yes.
It's a natural bug repellent.
It's a release exterior.
Oh, that's
Remember
cool,
when we were
yeah.
saying release exterior? So
Right.
it pushes whatever's trying to come in to the exterior.
That is
So
really
that's
great.
kind of cool. I mean, it
Yeah.
really does span
Right.
all those categories. So or all
Wonderful.
those symptoms.
All right, are we ready to move
Yep,
on?
we're ready.
Okay, so as we walk through the Medicinal Herb Garden, we're not going to be talking about every herb we see. This we have comfrey, which we use in our herbal salve. Comfrey is beautiful, and I'm not even going to go into what it is, but this is what that is. We also wanted to touch on, because we have some of our culinary herbs, which are also medicinal.
Yep.
And Susan wanted to talk a little bit about thyme as
Yeah.
a herb for health at this time?
Thyme at this time. So thyme is a wonderful herb. It's a kitchen cupboard herb. You should have it right now in your kitchen. That's why we wanted to also talk about this. So herbs are so accessible, and it got some popularity with the essential oils more recently, the thyme essential oil. But really, you can literally just use the herb directly.
Just cook with it.
Yeah, just cook with it. That's first and foremost. Start to put herbs in your cooking. And part of the reason I wanted to highlight thyme is because thyme is also a release exterior herb, just like yarrow. But it actually, it very much resonates with the throat. And since we're talking corona times, COVID, all that, it's been pretty much understood by Western medical practitioners, Chinese medicine practitioners, Eastern approaches, that the coronavirus pretty much starts in the throat. We've pretty much determined that. So this is the first stage of disease. So this is how we start to keep things at bay. We look at things before they get advanced. We start to look at the earlier stages and how we can work with that, rather than letting things proceed and then they're out of control. So you can make actually a thyme tea. Just put some thyme in a cup, pour some boiling water over it, drink it. And it's wonderful for the throat. It will keep that area activated. You can also gargle. You don't necessarily have to gargle with thyme, but just simply getting that area stimulated and aware of movement in that area is going to be a really good step. I try to do it at least once a week, where I'm just like, okay, you know, this thing is still happening. Let's be aware of how to keep things at bay.
Now, Susan, from a holistic medicine perspective, as you're speaking about the throat and how the illness starts in the throat, the thing that comes to my mind is the effects of stress on people, and the if we're holding anything in emotionally, oftentimes it appears in the throat.
Absolutely.
And so it occurs to me that one of the healthiest things people can do at this time is to really address stress in their life, which is maybe a bit of a conundrum because it's very stressful thinking about the pandemic, but maybe it's exactly what we should be doing, is meditating and being mindful and taking time to be still so that we can help release some of the stress in our system.
Well, and I think you're hitting it right on, which is that even though we have this stay-at-home order, really it's a time to stop, take a pause. A lot of people have adjusted their work schedules, even if they're working from home. Take the time to make a little bit of tea. You know, take the time to notice your body more when it's not under this major scheduling, and being able to quiet things a little bit. So I think it's a perfect example.
Wonderful.
So,
all right, we're going to continue on because we could talk forever about every herb
know.
in this garden.
Totally.
So again, if you're just joining us, I'm Terry Hickey with Dayempur Herbals. With me is Susan Kamil, who's a licensed acupuncturist and a clinical herbalist out of the Dayempur Health Center. We're at Dayempur Farm. It's a gorgeous day, and we're fortunately doing this before it gets too hot. And we're walking by all these wonderful plants. We grow over 40 medicinal herbs in this garden. We're only going to talk about a handful today, but you also can tune in next Saturday at 10 a.m. and we're going to continue this conversation. But we're walking by the calendula, which is just gorgeous and flowering. Calendula is a tissue restorative. We use it in our herbal salve. We use it in our inflammation pain relief oil, our breast care oils. It's a wonder. It like literally is known to knit together the tissue and skin and heal wounds. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And then we're going to move over to the Echinacea, which is beautifully flowering right now. We've got it in many different beds. The reason we have it in so many beds, one, it's a beautiful plant. It's also known as coneflower for most people. But we use the root of the Echinacea plant. The root tends to be one of the most potent parts of the plant, and we make a liquid extract or a tincture out of the Echinacea. So we're going to climb into the bed again, and we're going to hear a little bit more from Susan, and just step in this way.
Here we are. So, Echinacea, obviously it's gorgeous. It's attracting all these bees right now, so we know it's a pollinator, and it's also known as coneflower. Most people know about Echinacea from an immunity building standpoint, and truthfully, clinically, I've not found it to be very helpful in that, evidence with that.
Interesting.
So, but what I have found it helpful for, it goes back to, again, its Chinese herb category, which is, it is a clear heat herb. And it's not just in Chinese herbalism, there's multiple kinds of heat. This is a clear heat herb for toxic heat. So what I've used it clinically most effectively is for spider bites. And really any poisonous bite from any animal or insect. This can be used pretty much immediately, and you can take it every 15 minutes even, in a tincture form. So part of the idea is that when we get some type of bite, case in point, I just had a client whose little boy had a brown recluse bite, and he started taking it. It dealt with the brown recluse bite. They laid off of it some, and he started to have bloody noses. So the bloody nose is a sign that the heat is still in his system. Remember, we were talking about that, the blood moving. When the blood is really moving, that means there's heat in the system, and we want to reduce that, we want to cool it. So this will actually help to cool that. And so that was our sign that he actually needed to keep taking the Echinacea. And once he got back on it, we knew that the bloody noses started reducing. He actually was less toxic in a way, because when you get a toxic bite, you do feel toxic. So not just at the bite area locally, but in your system. So he was able to be less agitated, easier going, easier sleep, as well as the bloody noses stopped. So all these things are wonderful signs for us of the different types of heat and how they can show up over a period of time if we're trying to address something specifically, like a bite. And then sometimes these things live in our systems for a little bit of time, and we have to keep addressing them, at least for, maybe weeks or a few months, and see how much we need it.
You mentioned, taking Echinacea every 15 minutes, and Echinacea is kind of amazing because it's antiviral. I believe it's even antibacterial.
Right.
And it's so good. If you are, we've always told people, if you're feeling a cold coming on, or you're talking about a bite and maybe even an external bite, but in a way, can you think of getting an infection or a cold coming on in your lungs or something?
Absolutely.
As something that really could be addressed and released before it gets too bad, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Echinacea is wonderful. And I think, when I think back on herbal medicine, I think Echinacea was popular like 30 years ago. It was one of the first herbs that people became conscious of using as a plant-based medicine. So it's one of the pioneers in plant-based medicine in terms of public awareness around Echinacea. And so it's a really good thing to have on your shelf and in your medicinal herb cabinets at home, because you can use it for so many things, and you can actually even use it topically.
Oh, absolutely.
The tincture you could put on a little ball, cotton ball,
like a cotton ball,
and apply it externally as well.
You absolutely can. You can do that with most of the tinctures.
Yeah.
You can do that. And also, one of the things I really love about this, and I love bringing this back to this idea of what is around you will heal you, and also the season. So we're in summer. This is a clear heat herb. So, and when do people tend to get overheated, whether it be from a virus or whether it be from a bite? Those are all levels of heat, different types of heat in the body, and those can especially come on this time of year. So I just love that it's at its beautifulest, I should say. I know we go with the roots, but you can actually harvest the whole plant.
Absolutely.
So, I just think that's such a wonderful reminder that this is, and it's also very red, which is also associated with the summer and fire element. That color is associated with it. So
red
got
and orange.
All those doctrine of signatures, as we call it.
In the Dayempur Herbals Medicinal Herb Garden, we love having all these pollinating plants because we're not just growing plants for human beings. We're growing plants for the whole environment and the whole ecosystem at our farm. We have 20 bee colonies on our farm, and they're just over the hill here. And the bees love coming in here. Starting in April, when the apple blossoms are blossoming, to now when we have the Echinacea and coneflowers blossoming. And the next flower that we're going to talk about, or the next plant we're going to talk about, is really a very popular pollinating plant, which is called butterfly weed. And Dayempur Herbals makes 14 different tinctures that we sell publicly, but we also make